take what we're doing and adapt it to the needs of the kids that have an IEP. And
Yeah.
if I don't need to adapt it, that's probably best, so they can work without, if they can do it on their own,
Right.
that's good.
That's the end goal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, speaking of your kids, I'm curious to know a little bit more about the kids that I saw that day. It was the group where you had Skyla and I think Jada. Tell me a little bit about those kids.
Well, Skyla, she's at 5th grade reading level.
Okay. So she's not super low, but she's lower than she should be.
Yep.
Okay.
She can be a tough kid, but I have a good relationship with her.
Good.
She
likes to give everybody hell, doesn't she?
yeah, but it goes well. When I notice her work, or like in some of her conclusions that were done in science for other things, what she writes isn't always on topic with what the question was.
Okay.
And sometimes her writing is just all over the place. I'm like, it's not straight left to right.
Oh, almost as if she can't keep it quite organized,
Yeah.
like visually.
So I don't know what that was all about. Maybe she was just being silly today, but
Oh,
that's what.
it's always a possibility.
That, and then Emma is another one.
Oh, okay. It was Emma, not Jada.
Yeah.
I can't tell them apart.
I can't write it. But I know which class period they're in. That's how I get.
That's
how I do it.
helpful.
Emma, she's like 5th grade as well.
Okay.
Reading level. She pays attention pretty well and puts pretty good effort in to those. I think her writing is really subpar.
Okay.
Which is indicative of her language skills. It's hard to decipher what she writes. I have to take and try to figure out what do those letters mean. What word is she talking about?
I got you.
I just decipher. I had to do that today with something that she wrote, and I think that reading and writing are so critically linked that I think that's a hint that she struggles with language.
Right.
But she does a pretty good job of following along, and at least when we do close reading, because that's what I, if I had to say what was the most important, you don't want to say something's more important than another, but the close reading is how I give them their specifically designed instruction for reading, because all of them have a reading goal, and for special ed, they need to have instruction that's over and above what a general student would get.
Right.
And that's how we do it when we pull them in here. That's how it fits best. And so a lot of what I think about right now is that I'm thinking about is how do they do with reading and close reading, because that's what their goal is, and that that I focus on.
Sure.
And I do the other things too, like support their writing and the science work too, which how do I structure assignments, how do I adapt or amend an assignment so that they can access it a little better. But,
So it's not so overwhelming.
yeah, for the most part, I'm focusing on the reading, or that's what I'm thinking about now, at least in our conversation.
Sure.
So we had Skyla, Madison would have been in there too.
Yep.
She does pretty well. She's almost getting close to being exited. If she can, she can bring her reading level up a little bit.
And I think Jessie L is in there. I'm trying to remember who else. I don't.
I'm trying to pull it up.
It's Emma.
Thor.
Skylar. Thor, that's right, yeah.
Krista.
Yep, Krista.
And Ureli. Jessiel's at 2nd grade. No, 3rd grade now.
Is he ELL?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's ESL. He had a more intensive support last year. Now he has co-taught support for ESL.
Okay. So he's moving along, just not.
Yeah.
He's not quite as high as some of your other ones in there. Okay.
And he struggles with language.
Yeah.
Reading and writing. Sometimes I wish I could get a passage that's maybe a little more his reading level, a little lower than what we're doing, or if I could have a way to, if I have 5 kids in the room and we're all reading the same passage, that they could be at different reading levels. I know Newsletter does some of that, but we have to find an article that matches what we're doing in class.
Right, and sometimes Newsela would have it and sometimes not. No, I understand that. And that is a feature of Newsela, and there are a few other programs out there, I think, that do that, but yeah, no, I understand that would be ideal. You know, if you had 5 kids and 5 reading levels, if you had 5 articles, same article, just different levels, and
That's the best way, I think, to get that, because you can go by grade, you can adjust it on that, and it'll give you them, but usually you can't just get that.
yeah, that's hard. So then you take like the article that you were using. One thing I really liked about what you did versus because I had watched Mrs. Atchison the period before, and one thing I really liked about what you did versus what she did was that you limited it to just the 2 paragraphs. And I thought, because when I saw this article and I thought about your kids before I even came in here, I thought, wow, that's going to be a lot for them. And not even knowing who you were going to have in here, just knowing that they probably have reading goals. So I appreciated, it just made me feel better when I came in and realized that you were only doing that first little bit. I thought, wow, that's really good. That's really good. And so how do you think it went? I mean, you've done more close reading than I have, so I'm just curious what your thoughts are as to how you think things went that day.
It went all right. I could have liked a little more engagement, and with them a little more on their seat, on the edge of their seat. They knew it a little bit more.
Curiosity, like kind
Yeah.
of wanting to find the right find the
Yep.
answers.
Like you just said, if in a perfect world, we would use something lower reading level. That was pretty tough to explain.
It's pretty hot. It's pretty hot. I don't know what the reading level of this passage is, but I would guess that it's at least 5th grade or higher.
Oh, that's gotta be more.
Maybe
It's-
6th or 7th grade,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say.
It's like the concepts aren't easy,
Right.
and some of the words that they used, I know they used convection. I didn't remember exactly what that meant, and that's what it's about. You know, and they say circular current. Well, they've heard the word current before, but they don't know what it means in this context.
Right.
And also, I don't know if you were in here, it wasn't this period you were in here, but I pointed to the word cell and I asked, so what does this word mean? And a kid said, oh, in your body you have cells. But that's not what that word means in this context.
Right.
So they don't know.
Means something different in biological science than it does in physical science. And
And if those vocabulary words, if they don't understand them, it's going to make it difficult to comprehend. So
sure.
so each period I adjusted. The
Okay.
first period we were reading the whole thing, or the first 2 periods, but then I cut it. And the next period I had them do 1 through 5,
Okay.
and then I just did the last 2 when you were in here. Because then I figured, because that's what I was focusing on mostly was number 2 anyway.
What is in that second paragraph? Yeah, that's kind of what I figured, and that had a lot of the really key information in it. It seemed like to me.
Yeah, so I guess what I would like for a little more engaged, it kind of felt like they're going along with it and having a hard time. What I was just trying to say was, I think the article had something to do with it. It was a little harder for them to grasp, and I had to try to explain it to them as we were going. And I don't like to explain what it means in a close reading.
Sure.
I don't want to have to give them so much.
Right.
Like in a close, I'd like them to be able to have some after reading it, to have some sense of the flow of what the point of the article was.
Right.
And so, yeah. And I went afterwards, I went back through and I looked at what they wrote. and I could tell that it wasn't quite what I wanted. And when I said, what's this article, but they were using words that were similar and topics, or like, it was in the ballpark, but it wasn't exact what,
It was in the neighborhood, just maybe not right on point.
not the right house, yeah.
They, one thing I noticed too about you this time versus the last time I was in, and this is just one little thing I picked up, because like I said, I'm mostly kind of watching the kids' behavior. But one thing I noticed that you were more direct this second time about explaining to them that they were reading for the purpose of understanding what the author's trying to teach you or tell you. And I noticed that, I think that helped. And it was a lot more clear, at least to me, this last time. And, maybe it was just the class periods I was in too. I don't know, because I don't even remember which period I came before, but I know it was a different class. So I think, if you're tailoring your lesson on the fly, that's really good. That I did that for years. It happens. Was this close reading different? Obviously it's a different topic, but were there things that you purposely did differently this time versus other times when you've done a close reading? Were there conscious changes you made? Did you say to yourself, well, I did this other time and that didn't seem to really work, or that just seemed like a wasted moment or whatever, so I'm going to do this? Were there things like that involved in this particular one?
I didn't. I could have done a better job of reflecting, trying to make an adjustment, but mostly what I did was just worked on the structure of close reading and see how they did. That would be helpful to kind of review and reflect and how could we adjust it for next time. Maybe we can talk about that more, or we can work on that, talk about that for next time. But
absolutely.
For the most part, I just looked at I tried to find what was going to be a question I thought they could get to. And then.
No, I had the first two questions written down because the bell rang before we. The first question was, what is the author trying to tell us? And then the second question was, which details in paragraph 2 support the idea that density can create currents? So I had those first two questions, and another thing I noticed that you changed from last time to this time, and this is just based on memory because I didn't write anything down last time, that the last time you had them actually write the question and then write the answer, and this time you're just having them write the answer. So you have a lot of tools for checking for understanding in the close reading, the annotating, the peer discussion, and all that. What are your thoughts about the different tools? Like here, you're asking them to write the answer to a specific question, and it was kind of the focus question at the beginning. So what is your thought? Which method of reflecting for the kids do you think which one do you think they're getting the most out of? Do you think they get more out of thinking and writing? Do you think they get more out of discussing it with their peer? Do you think they get more out of discussing it openly in class with you?
I think they get more out when they talk with their peer, or just share a little bit about it.
Okay.
And it can be direct. So it's intense. Not
Sure.
intense, but everyone is engaging with the material.
Right.
And more of it than a passive level. You have to.
It's specific. It's got an intended outcome.
Yeah.
And do you find with your kids being a little lower, is that harder with them? Not so
Really
much.
shouldn't be.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
And you have usually pretty small groups, so that probably lends itself
Yeah.
pretty well to that.
And I do that on purpose, so we can have small group instruction, and I can get around to them easier, and it's less anxiety.
Right.
We have less people in the room.
So the bell rang just before they got around to the reflecting on their second read, I believe. Is that correct? It seems like they were just getting ready to start their second reading, And the question was gonna be, after their second reading, which details in paragraph 2, and they were gonna find those details. I think you had pointed some of them out up on the board. Maybe they had already done their second read.
I think they had.
Okay.
Because at the first read is, read it, what's it about.
Right.
Second, they answer it, and then we did, I think they did their second read and we were reviewing the second question.
Okay, okay. So I like the underlining based on the second read, because I think that if they might have missed it the first time, because with the lower level kids, they might have been concentrating on circling or starring or something.
Yeah.
So I like that. What was the third one going to be? Do you remember?
Third, I can't remember.
That's okay. I was just curious. Did the third one, do you think it's focused on a specific part of paragraph 2?
I think it had something along the lines of how do different densities create a current?
Okay.
Or was that my second one?
No, second one was they had to find key details in the text in paragraph 2 to support the idea.
That's what it was. So 2 was to find details, just to find when does it talk about this? Heater makes air less dense.
Right.
When cold air makes it more dense. It goes in a circle. Just to write those things. And the third question was going to be put it together.
Okay. To kind of take the 2 pieces of information and figure out how that might work together. Okay.
Because I got that sheet from Lorinda, the close reading sheet, and 2 of those questions I thought looked really similar, but they're on different levels of questioning.
Sure. One is like recall, or just citing text evidence and recall. And then the next one would be kind of inferring.
Yeah. And so what, here it is. Grab these 2. So, key details is 1, and there's like author's purpose, and that was on inferences.
Okay. So then they had to take the key details that they found and infer how that was going to create that convection or that cell or whatever terminology they were using there.
Yeah.
So, so that was going to be like your third.
That was going to be my third one.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So, and what I ended up doing was I felt like I was explaining it the whole time, so they understood what I was talking about, or understood what the reading was about, so they could, because they read it and they noticed the vocabulary, and we talked about some of it, and we've talked about density, and we've talked about expanding, getting less dense, and they had the pictures. So we've done some of that. I don't know if you were in, if I use the fish example in here, but a different close reading we did with the swim bladder is bigger, they rise.
They go up
and they get
higher.
less dense. And the same thing happened with the air, it gets less dense and it rises, and it goes in a circle. So they had some of those, those concepts we had done before.
Okay.
But I wasn't, I did more kind of trying to talk with them through the last one. I didn't feel like I wasn't confident enough giving them the third question, or I wasn't confident enough in how they understood or my ability to help them understand or get the second one. So I wanted to walk through that to
absolutely
try to make connections as best they could with what they read and what they jotted down.
And I have to hand it to you, Mr. Bush, with kids this level and this age, because their functioning level doesn't match their age. It's challenging. So you do find yourself explaining things more than you maybe want to. So, and obviously that's something you're aware of. You've caught yourself doing it, and it's hard not to, though. We're teachers. We want to explain. We want to show. We want them to understand. And I I'm always curious when a teacher says that or catches himself doing that. It's like, how can we make ourselves not do that? You know,
Yeah.
how can we help them to come to that conclusion on their own rather than saying,
Mhm.
okay, now here's how this works. So,
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
it's an interesting question. Is this like, yeah, I don't, you know, we don't want to withhold information. That's not our job.
Sure.
But yet we don't want to, you know, hand it to them either always.
Mhm.
So it's that combination of leading them to it, but helping them come up with that on their own.
Mhm.
It's a hard balance.
Right. How would you say that's something I could improve on is, I mean, you're only doing it once or twice, but
Right.
with, instead of explaining it to them, just letting them put out what they have and then,
I mean, I think if you know, you give them maybe information about, okay, we're going to read sentences 2 and 3 of this paragraph. After you read that, what can you tell me about, you know, give them some very specific guidelines and then just a couple times see what they come up with.
okay.
And I understand, although about this level of kids, that sometimes they don't come up with what you were thinking they're
Yeah.
going to come up with, and so then you default to explaining, and
Yeah.
that's okay too. You know, there's nothing wrong with being, you know, being willing to explain to them. But yeah, I think that would be something, but I think all teachers probably can improve on
Okay.
it too. So.
Okay.
But I appreciate you having me in, and
Yeah.
I would love to come back and even maybe help you reflect on this one when you're doing your next one.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Do you guys know when you're doing one again? Maybe next week
Next
sometime?
week.
Okay.
So let me talk to Tammy and see when we think we will and what article
Okay.
we'll do, and then
Yeah, just
could sit
holler
down.
at me. Let me know. I mean, I have some things going, but I'm usually can make time,
Mhm.
and so. But yeah, no, thanks for having me in. I appreciate it.
no, I'd really appreciate it. If
Yeah.
we could do this as much as we can, that'd be helpful for me.
You bet. Well, it's helpful for me too, since I'm not the close reading expert. It gives me